Anthropic and OpenAI just made a stunning admission. They basically just told us that AI usage and token revenue isn't going as well as they're portraying in the media. And they did this by revealing their two newest investments, which are consulting firms. They've invested a combined $5.5 billion into two consulting firms to help with AI deployment at the enterprise level. Now, these are the same two companies that have been seeding the narrative that AI is going to take your job. AI is going to replace software engineers, lawyers, truckers, and everybody. However, why would they invest $5.5 billion into consulting firms, which they were basically saying that the people in those consulting firms were going to be replaced? I mean, listen, as far as an employee at a consulting firm goes, they are the ones that are ripe to get disrupted more than a software engineer, product person, or anybody as far as knowledge work goes, because it's pure knowledge work. All they do is create these fancy looking decks that they overcharge enterprise for. And why couldn't you not automate that? There's tons of AI startups that claim that they can automate a slide deck and replace these people quickly. But instead, they decided to invest $5.5 billion into consulting firms, which aren't really technology. So why would they do that? So if they're going to invest in these consulting firms, that's basically saying that at the enterprise level, these companies are dragging their feet with AI adoption, or they have no idea how to use tokens efficiently or what to build or how to build it. And maybe they're actually saying that building AI products, even to automate away basic tasks, is a lot harder than people think, and it doesn't align with the narrative that AI is going to replace your job. You always look at a person's actions instead of their words. And if you watch some of my other videos, I've called out how fear mongering basically triggers fear and gets people to use products. You better build something or you're going to be part of the permanent underclass. And if you don't do it tonight, if you don't token max for 16 hours a day, your job is going to be replaced and you're going to be fired. You're going to be one of the employees that Meta laid off, or Square, or Coinbase. But however, the problem with that narrative is if usage, which again, these are being positioned as the fastest growing consumer applications of all time, the fastest growing in revenue. I mean, Anthropic is posting insane revenue numbers, but at the same time, why would you waste billions of dollars on consulting firms if this was the reality? And I'm going to tell you the actual reality right now. If you look at this graph over here, it shows that who is actually token maxing right now, and it is the AI startups, right? And then you have VC, which has deployed more capital in the first quarter of 2026 at 300 billion than ever before. And then you suddenly see where all the token maxing revenue comes from. And it's essentially a token maxing circle jerk of AI startups across 6,000 startups, which they have billions of dollars deployed. They have these VCs breathing down their neck to build and innovate or die. So when you look at that, and then you look at the user numbers of OpenAI and Anthropic, and while OpenAI apparently has like 800 million users, a very small portion of that are paid users. Only about 30 million are premium users. And then you go lower down, it's probably much smaller who are paying the $100 or $200 a month. I'm paying it because I need it and I use it so much. but it can't be more than like a million people maybe paying the 100 or 200. And then you go lower down, who are the people actually building products and using Codex and Claude Code? That's an even smaller percentage, because just because people have the ability to make a hamburger or a pizza, they would rather go to the restaurant and have somebody make it for them. Not everybody wants to be a token maxing app builder to automate their workflows. They just want to go home, go to work, be with their families, and then maybe use an app or two to improve their lives. So you kind of see how this token maxing circle jerk is kind of working, and it's the startups that are proportionally using all these tokens versus the masses. So when you kind of peel back the layers and you pull back the curtain, you kind of see that these startups and companies may not be as healthy as they initially look on paper, and both of them are getting ready to IPO. And once they IPO, investors are going to be really scrutinizing the books and really digging in deep. And the other thing is, Anthropic and OpenAI cannot sustain this growth until they get new users. So for them to go basically spend billions on consulting firms, they are openly admitting that to keep this token circle jerk going, they need to educate enterprise, which has all sorts of red tape, procurement, and budgets to think about. And that basically gives you an inside view on how hard it is to actually drive AI adoption outside of just asking for a shopping list or a recipe or a workout plan. And you suddenly realize it's really not that easy for AI to replace you or AI to take your job. And I'm speaking from firsthand experience in the trenches, building 2 different apps for enterprise, one in criminal justice and one for dentists, large dentists that manage hundreds of locations. And it's not as easy as being like, hey, check out my AI app. Do you want to pay me $100 a month for it? All these like industries, they're fragmented. They have different processes and everything. They have budgetary restrictions as well for criminal justice. Basically, law enforcement, their budget period is June or July. So if you don't get into the budget by then you're not getting into the budget until next year. So it's what I'm trying to say is it goes back to the whole, these doomers don't know what they're talking about and they're not actually building apps. I mean, look at all these people on X and all these other social platforms who are saying, I built this app to do this and that, and it's going to take your job, so you better figure it out. Most of them haven't shipped any reasonable products or apps that have hit the masses. Every once in a while, you do get some like Zach Yadagari with Cal AI, who just crushed it with that one. However, you can kind of see as OpenAI and Anthropic get closer and closer to their IPO, the pressure is on. Look at the CFO that came out and said basically that she is worried about OpenAI's spending, while Sam Altman kind of dismisses it and says, don't really worry about it, as his character is being brought into question in a court case. So when you start taking a step back and really, really looking at everything, and I just want to say that I'm a huge AI maxi. Again, I'm building 2 products. I use AI every day. I see this. I spotted this from a mile away, because it's really not easy to build functional products in AI. It is essentially the new websites. Remember how long websites took to get to a point where people could actually build them themselves? It took about 20 or 30 years. There's multiple website companies, right? Think about the teams it took to manage building, designing, and deploying a website until recently, and then also growing the website. And even then, just because you can build a website doesn't mean that everyone's going to build a website. A lot of people still hire out. AI is becoming the new websites, right? Sure, you can deploy a dinky little AI app that automates one of your tasks. But when you have to take into account security features and other requests and edge cases and red tape inside of the enterprise, it's really not as simple as just vibe coding some slop app and then deploying it across your entire organization in dentistry or criminal justice. There are security concerns as well. There are data concerns as well. There are certain parts in an enterprise where only one department can do certain things and then another department can't, so they can't interconnect. So it's a massive fragmented ecosystem that it's going to take time and education to deploy in. And Anthropic and OpenAI just bet $1 billion that they could help these companies do that. And they are both going after the massive enterprise, right? They are not going after the small and local businesses and the smaller shops or anything like that, because they have to go after the highest leverage budgets and revenue, right? They need to land those $1 million a year contracts, the $2 million a year contracts, so they can deploy a team to help this enterprise team build functional, innovative apps inside of their ecosystem, massive financial hedge funds and all that stuff that have all this red tape that they have to build these custom edge cases for. So what you're looking at today is OpenAI and Anthropic basically openly admitting that the narrative that they've been pushing is not accurate in any way. And when you work in tech and you're in growth and product, like I have been for a very long time, you have this internal friction between, one, telling everybody about your app and how it functions realistically, and then getting attention, likes, clicks, and ultimately users into your ecosystem. Because every AI doomer post that gets maybe 1 million impressions or 5,000 retweets, only a small percentage of those actually become users. And then only a smaller percentage of those become actual power users who join the token maxing circle jerk. These startups are under the gun. The 6,000 startups that 300 billion were deployed across, they are under the gun. They have to use AI and become efficient, or they will die, or they won't get their next round of funding, or they won't grow. And what you're going to see eventually is a lot of these startups are going to quietly shutter, and really not even say anything. The VCs aren't going to say anything. And a lot of these VC podcasts that I watch, they don't really, there's no pushback. They're just talking about this future narrative that is going to happen with AI if we keep going on the same trajectory. But the truth is that if you look at any tech hype cycle, right? Any hype cycle, there's always something that stops it in its tracks, something unexpected, because right now everybody has AI psychosis and they can't see it. They're euphoric because they're token maxing until 4 a.m. and they're building these dinky little apps that already exist. It puts on blinders on people and they don't see what's coming. So